Hey everyone, thanks for popping on to our Hope Story show. Today we've got Pat on. Hey Pat, how you going? Yeah, I actually met Pat at church. We're both getting a coffee, and look, I was so stoked that he wanted to share his story. So yeah, so would you like to share a little bit about your faith, Patrick?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. I guess I sort of came from a fairly interesting household. My father was an atheist at the time he met my mother and he had me. So, and then my mum was sort of a nominal person of faith at that time. And then she came to the Lord sort of two kids into their marriage. And then my father basically didn't really have an interest in following her faith until one day I was being babysat. I think I was 2 or 3 years old. I was being babysat by my older brother, and at the time, building standards weren't the same as they are now. And I walked through grates in a veranda.
Yeah,
My mum was on the phone, and basically walked through or sort of angled my way through the fence
yeah.
on top of the veranda and fell off one-story building onto my head
Oof.
and had bilateral head fractures. Ambulance came. And the medical experts told my father, look, your son's, it's very, very likely that he won't be able to make it. So he thought, I'm going to try this prayer thing that my wife keeps talking about.
Yeah,
And they rang him the next day and said, look, we've had a bit of a turnaround. We can't really see anything wrong with your son anymore. You can just come and get him. So from that point on, he had a power encounter, like he had an encounter with God answering his prayers. So from that point onwards, he had a faith. He's an evolutionary biologist, so
wow.
he had to sort of grapple with
Yeah, wow.
theological issues, but he knew God and he knew the power of God, and he basically his journey started from there. So I guess that's a bit of a background of my family's faith. So they
Yeah.
sort of attended an Anglican church. My mum attended a Catholic church, and we just had to go wherever they went until I think it was 13 when I was kind of given a choice as to where I would be going. And so I chose not to go and sort of went down a path of just living for myself, just chasing like anything really that would bring me happiness. And because I was like the second of five kids, we were kind of, left to take care of ourselves to a large extent,
Mm.
which I don't begrudge my parents. I think, they did the best they could. But I'd ended up sort of falling into a circle of friends at school who would, smoke a lot of weed
Yeah.
and listen to um, interesting music and basically started sort of living that sort of lifestyle. Ended up smoking pot, I would say, every day for from grade 10 to grade 12. And yeah, it kind of
Mm.
went down a bit of a spiral of self-confidence and um and all the things associated with fairly heavy usage. Or it became fairly antisocial, was awkward with girls, would just want to sort of do next to nothing with your mates on the weekend. I was in a band, so there was some sort of positive outlets there, but life wasn't really happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I sort of was able to, by God's grace, leave that circle of influence and those habits and started doing lots of sports and rock climbing became a very bit of a manic hobby of mine.
Yeah.
But that sort of seemed to dry up as well. And so for this whole time, my mum just kept praying for me and badgering me to come along to an alpha course. And yeah, I guess after, not finding real satisfaction in the climbing and the girls and the drugs and everything else, I thought I'd just give it a go just to sort of shut her up and there
Get
was
her
there
off your
was a
back.
yeah, and there was a real seeking there to find out, actually I should give a little bit of I think a couple of months before my mum I said yes to my mum's invitation. I traveled to India for about 6 weeks, and there was a real in India everyone's of a religion, whereas in
Yeah.
Australia you have a choice, like you're religious or you're not. So I
Mm.
did explore the Hindu religion and the Sikh religion. I just looked at the temples and as a tourist, and I thought, well, if I'm exploring Hinduism, then I should probably give Christianity equal footing in this consideration, and that was sort of a bit of a trigger to go to Alpha and respond in the positive to my mum's invitation. So I went to Alpha. Um, it was clear, it was logical, it was well thought out. the presentation made sense, and I think for me there was a real opportunity to ask a lot of questions about my concerns and grievances with Christianity, and the people that talked to me were patient. They said they didn't know if they didn't know, and we would try and find out next week. So
Hmm.
that was a very good sort of space to explore Christianity. And so that was, I guess, after that I didn't do the full course. I sort of was half committed.
Yeah,
But then
yeah.
I felt like that was a real start of my Christian journey. And then from there, I sort of made connections with a few key Christians at university. They invited me to a church, and then that's where I would say my faith really started to grow, and I started to attend life groups and be regular attendance at church and have like real authentic Christian fellowship with other believers.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's probably at a high level.
Yeah, nice. That I find that did your dad's encounter, because did you say he was an evolutionary biologist? Is that the one?
Yeah, and an atheist.
Atheist. So he's
I
pretty
guess
staunch atheist at the time.
yeah,
Wow. So yeah, did that that's that popped out of me there. It should probably isn't a surprise, right? Did that impact you later on? Like did that ever come up again? That his because I'm sounds like I think you said you were a boy when he had a bit of an encounter.
yes.
Yeah. Did you when you were older, did that come up again? Did that ever bubble up again and become an important like
Are you saying about the fact that he's an evolutionary biologist?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, he's an evolutionary biologist that had like a bit of a prayer encounter or something like that. So it's something that may not be like for an evolutionary biologist. It may not be like from what I understand, it may not be something that he was expecting or some.
Yeah, yeah. I guess it was a real affront to his current paradigm. He we didn't discuss it a lot. I guess he did sort of have to grapple with like if I believe in this as a theory of how the world came to being, then where does God and Jesus come into it? So I think I mean he's passed now,
Yeah.
but I think
Okay.
he he's an old earther, right? So I don't want to go into the to
Oh
the
no,
weeds of
that's
that.
fine. No, it's more about you and like your parents do have an impact on you, like my parents did. Then
Yeah, yeah,
digging into some of the things that they've experienced, and it's sort of like wow, there's
yeah,
obviously some faith choices in there, or you know, some spiritual impact, that sort of thing. I mean, you
yeah.
brought that up. Yes,
Yeah, in terms of my faith, I don't think it was a big issue. I think more like looking back, like his example of how he treated people, his demeanor, his patience, and all the fruits of the spirits, I guess, were more of an influence in my decisions and to follow Christ than his theory on how the world came to be.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah, yeah. But yeah, I'm sure, he had some interesting perspectives and that sort of thing. But
Yes.
yeah, let's talk about you, hey? So yeah, I mean, I had a similar experience. Growing up, that sort of thing, and had some exposure to Christianity. The school I was going to, there was drugs there.
Mm.
There was a small Christian school actually, and I had to come to a point where I just had to say to my friends, nah, like what you're doing, I can't really be a part of anymore.
Mm.
So how did you manage to step away from that? Because that's a pretty big
Yeah.
thing. For me, it changed. I had to change what like my friend group. So
Yeah, I guess looking back, I had to replace the drugs with something. So I did a lot of cycling
yeah,
as a way to get the natural highs and natural endorphins
yeah,
and get all that going. So I think God really, I guess, you know, was sort of leading me back to Him through good choices, right? And so and I guess those friendships did slowly fade away. I didn't like, thankfully, I didn't have to um, make the big.
sever.
Yeah, I didn't have to say, "Look, I can't. I need to cut you guys off." There
Yeah,
was sort of a natural sort of walking away from it, and I think my friends were kind of getting over it at that point too.
yeah, yeah.
When they moved out of Brisbane too, so
Yeah, well, that's what happened with me too. A lot of them moved out of Brisbane, and the one that didn't is I was like, oh well, you're a good guy. So I talked to his parents, and then I've met a year or so, I think 2 years later, he had left that culture, and then he asked me to come to church, and he was playing lead piano at church, from being like a on bush duffer to do it
Uh,
to
yeah,
worship leading. It was just
yeah.
like I couldn't believe it. It's amazing what God can do. So yeah, it's great to hear that you were able to change things. Was that like a conscious was that a tough conscious decision to do that?
To sort of walk away from your friendship circle.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think the part of it was because it was comfortable, and these are the friends that you kick around with on the weekends, and so to leave that was a little bit painful. But I think I was also getting a bit over it as well.
mm,
Like I could see that yeah, they're nice people, but they're not doing anything. There was very little in the way of a future in those circles, and I could I think by God's grace too that things sort of lined up that I would want to be in different circles. So
yeah, absolutely. So
yeah,
I got a tough question for you.
yeah,
Get into
sure.
the meat of it. What? Yeah. So, was there a moment when your relationship with Jesus became personal to you?
Yeah, I think like in the sort of the church that I was connected with at UQ, that's where
Mm.
I really thought, like this, I'm going to have to change how I make choices. I'm going to change how I live and who I live for. And that process is still going.
Yeah.
There's a
Fair.
it doesn't finish, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think there was a real like change in priorities in my life and how I would sort of carry myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. But
Yep.
that's. Do you what does that mean for you today? Like, do you like in your day what you do daily or weekly? What is that when we say relationship with Jesus?
Yeah.
What does that what does that practically mean? Because I think I definitely had to search for that myself.
Mm.
Like
Yep.
if you a lot of people might get that. If you're new, especially if you're new to Christianity, and I think that might be helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a real day-to-day thing. Like I'm just been reading The Discipline of Grace, which talks about the necessity of having both elements in your life. You really do need the grace to sort of empower the disciplines of good Christian living. And so for me, it really is that daily choice to have good habits that basically allow God to be front and center of your world. So for me, like the mornings are very important. Like
Yeah.
I do
It's
need to
good.
like have those moments where with God where I would journal, I would just sit, or I would read His Word, or a book that really explains His Word to me in ways that I can understand. And
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
think
It's
starting the
fair.
day with 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 that really sort of sets the tone for the day, and then I think like making those choices throughout the day to be sensitive to where the spirit might be leading, even in the context of work or being a father or being a friend. And so for me it is those habits in the morning, but also those habits really set you up to be a bit more sensitive to God's calling, and in terms of putting other people first or being of service to people. Like I think being ready and available and sensitive to the needs of others is a huge part of our response to the message of Jesus. And I'm not there by any means, but I think
Yeah,
I
yeah, it's
I
a
think
big one though, isn't it? Like what does that practically mean today when let's say you're reading an old, you read the Bible is, it was written a long time ago. What does that mean today? And yeah, that's something that I think a lot of Christians struggle with. A lot of people, yeah, if we're we're saved by grace, not by works, so nobody can boast. But then where do the works come in? What does that look
yeah.
like? We're not there to boast about it, but should we yeah, should we feel that we should you know driven to do that in an authentic way? And
Yeah, I mean,
what does that look like? Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it just reminds me of Paul's words. He runs the race, right? So he's really running hard at the finish line, but it is out of a position of grace. So
Mm.
you really do need to be on that foundation of grace to run your race. You do need both. Like, and I guess his life is something that we should take quite seriously. In that he's not lukewarm about his actions because of he knows the power of grace, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's this pattern of behavior that is a good model where he runs hard and he's giving up a lot for the gospel so that it may be known. He's paid paying the ultimate price for that. But he knows everything is from Christ anyway, and he's learned to be content with a little and a lot. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think I'm still grappling with that. Like
Yeah.
how do we
100%.
balance
It's tough.
the service, but how do we avoid the burnout? Because I think that can be a very real thing if you don't have your times of rest and recovery and filling up your cup, you're not a good witness. You're dry, you're tired, you're exhausted, you're no use to anyone, including yourself. So I think there's this balance that we strive for.
Yeah, yeah. And like an extreme example I've heard of that is there are a lot of pastors get away to have getaways and retreats and that sort of thing because they do, um, if you look at our church, for example, there's a lot of people there, there's a lot of people
Mm,
asking questions, a lot of people wanting, pastoral care, that sort of thing.
yeah,
And yeah, it's got to be tiring because you're feeling something that the world would struggle to give,
yeah,
So yeah, it's you've got to have that. I think like yeah, yeah. Like for me, it's like you've got to feel you've got to take care of you've got to take care of yourself so you can take care of others.
yeah,
And that's not doesn't have I wouldn't don't do that, and I wouldn't encourage anyone to do that in an excessive way. And I like that you said you swapped the party life, if it's a nice light way to call it, the band
yeah,
life or that sort of thing, for exercise and that sort of thing. So you're looking for a positive outlet, a positive addiction, if you like, if you will, you know. And I think that's starting to take care of yourself, and you start to get there's a feedback loop of you have a sense of well-being and that sort of thing. And I think that's the physical. If you're going to go out there and talk to people, or even at work, talk to people about Christ,
mm,
your faith, you definitely want to be well.
yeah,
Otherwise, yeah, it's because you're gonna
yeah.
come up against challenges. Probably, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that there's no real formula for sort of self care that applies to everybody, and I think everybody kind of needs to work out how that works best for them to fill their cup. And for me, I find things that fill my cup up that other people would just hate. Like I love my rock climbing. I find it fills my cup up. Whereas someone that's just torture. So but we're both correct and I think like just knowing what fills your cup up and knowing what allows you to do ministry afterwards is really really key because if you're sort of not being true to how God made you, then you're just not going to be as effective. So
Yeah. Oh, I like that. What?
yeah,
Yeah. Has there been anything, in the last week or two that has stood out in your faith? Any, aha moments and that sort of
yeah, I
thing?
think I was just reflecting on last night. I sometimes help out with the food van.
Oh, nice.
The ideas were sort of downstream from Food Bank and a few other bakeries that just give us a ton of food, and we go and we go and we distribute it to sort of halfway houses or people that are struggling, and one of them is a place where ex prisoners are, and
Oh,
so
well.
there's giving. Like there's a real element you're giving.
Mm.
You offer prayer if they want it. If they don't want it, that's fine. But it's a lot of relationship building, and um, that it's a lovely expression, and I really enjoy it. But the thing is that there's a few guys who do it with me,
Mm.
and we're ministering to each other as we're driving from place to place. So
Mm.
like I think finding those moments where you can serve and be served at the same time, um, is almost like your cup's pouring out, then it's been filled up like in the same 10 minute window.
Yeah.
So that's fun. But I think too, like you do have longer windows where you are pouring your cup out. Like you're a father, I'm a father.
Mm.
There's windows there where there's not much coming back. There's
Yeah.
not much in the way of thanks, especially in the teenager years where
Yeah.
where they're doing what I did at that age, where you just got to hold your nerve and really grow in in your levels of patience and grace. And yeah, that's something that I'm still definitely working on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so yeah, serving, and I like that. Like you hear people say that's, if you're not sure, yeah, if you're not sure what to do, if you're not sure where to go, but you're able to help someone, help
Mm.
someone, and the answers, like you get some answers. It may not be the answer you're looking for, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you'll find some purpose, like rather than being lost in it. And yeah, that's what came to mind anyway. So yeah, thanks for popping on today with us, Patrick.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, it's been great. Yeah. Is there anything you liked, any final words, anything you like to leave with people about your faith or your faith journey, anything that might be, of encouragement or anything like that?
Yeah, I guess just be sensitive to who God wants you to be in the moment. Like, there are moments in our everyday walk where God requires us to wear a certain hat, to be sensitive, to be compassionate. And I think just being really sensitive to who you think God wants you to be in that moment. So whatever that looks like for you, for as a dad, it will be you need to be strong and firm, but then 10 minutes later you need to be compassionate and yield to like a hurting person. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's really helpful. And I think a lot of guys seem to, like, they might be a bit afraid of being sensitive like that, but they're wise words. But so yeah, so thanks for popping on.